Hey guys, it's me, Mr. 250, and welcome back to Umineko. I apologize for the long break. It was never my intention to go that long. Short story is, I've actually already recorded the next hour and lost all the data, so we're gonna have to do it all over again. However, to be safe, I'm gonna do this in 10-minute increments for the first part, and then edit them back together, so it won't be anything in your guys' end, but just so you know, we're gonna be taking regular breaks here just to make sure everything's flowing along. But let's continue here with Hideyoshi.
Oi!
Oi!
Kanon-kun yanaika!
Hideyoshi Oji-san suddenly shouted. Oh, and all of a sudden the text box disappeared. In the direction he was waving at, there was a slender boy. Meeting him right after a huge man like Goda probably emphasized his small stature. The boy was in the middle of transporting piled-up gardening tools, and the like in a wheelbarrow. When he realized he was being called to stop, he set down the wheelbarrow, or barrow, and took his hat off and bowed his head.
Konnichiwa.
I figured he was probably younger than me. I realized by the general atmosphere surrounding him that he was a servant too. He answered Hideyoshi Oji-san's greeting, but he seemed unsociable deep down. It was a greeting that lacked feeling. When Goda-san noticed our interest had shifted towards him, he went to the boy's side and introduced him to us. No, please do. I'd love to know about him.
後ろ宮本家にお仕えしております使用人の一人です。加納さん、お客様にご挨拶を。
はじめまして。使用人のカノンです。
Canon now. We got, I don't know if you could hear it because the music is so ridiculously loud in this game. Let's turn that down a little bit, even though it'll probably go back up in like 3 seconds. So, let's see. Canon, okay, got a new log for Canon. A young servant. He performs his duty silently and diligently, but is not so highly regarded as a servant due to his unsociable nature. There are several other servants with the on character in their pseudonyms. He and Shannon just happened to be the ones on duty that day. And I think they mean on as in the ending of their names. Lovely glass sound. Yep, my first impression wasn't wrong. He gave the feeling that he was unsociable, and a bit of a poor speaker. Compared to Goda-san, who was extraordinarily polished as a servant. No matter what he did, he gave off a feeling of inexperience typical of his age. When Goda-san urged him in a whisper to give a bit more of an introduction, the boy named Canon only cast his eyes downward.
Kanon-san, もう少し何か挨拶することはできませんか?
いえ。僕たちは家具ですから。
Aw, no, that wasn't nice. He seemed that he wasn't refusing to greet us out of spite, but rather, he gave the impression that he had no choice but to stay silent, not knowing what to add to his greeting. Oh, come on.
カノン君は寡黙でさ、余計なおしゃべりはしない性分なんだよ。
I'm sure you got perfectly interesting things to talk about. Just not right now.
愛想は少し悪いけど、根はいい人なんだぜ。誤解しないで。ここに勤めて3年になるんだっけ。確かゴーダさんより1年長いんだよな、カノン君。
Even though it's not like he made a super bad impression, Jessica hurriedly backed him up. I see. Apparently, him being unsociable works against him all the time.
そっか。よろしくな。俺はバトラ。18だけど、君はいくつだい?
Wow, a silence, as if appraising whether it was a question that must be answered or not. But here again, Jessica plowed ahead.
確か私たちの2つ下だから16だったよな。はい、
そうです。
It looked as if, given a choice, he would have preferred not to tell us his age. Him not wanting to tell his age was probably because he thought he would be looked down upon for it. I remember that when I was around his age. Hated being asked how old I was by adults. I see. 16, huh? That's gotta be a delicate time. In that case, I asked something I shouldn't have.
近いとして嬉しいぜ。気さくにバトラって呼んでくれよな。俺も君のことはカノンって呼ぶぜ。
ありがとうございます。お気持ちだけで結構です、バトラ様。
Jessica looked all downcast for some reason. She seemed to think that my impression of Canon was worsening because of his rejection. Well, that girl Jessica probably couldn't understand the fretful male heart at this age. As his elder, even if just by 2 years, who would lead him into adolescence, I took it upon myself to understand that.
カノンさん、もう少し愛想よくはできませんか。笑顔も使用人の義務ですよ。
申し訳ありません。努力します。
コーダさん、カノン君もいろいろ頑張ってるんですよ。ねえ。
It looked like he had already been well warned about his discourtesy. And, apparently, he hadn't improved a bit. Goda-san kept his business smile, but let a small sigh of resignation escape.
それではまだ仕事がありますので、失礼します。
It looked like Canon himself was uncomfortable with remaining silent here any longer. After another perfunctory bow, he turned on his heels and started pushing the wheelbarrow again. Just then, suddenly, the wheelbarrow wobbled and fell, scattering the load. I guess the wheelbarrow with its single wheel caught on a pebble and lost its balance.
何をしてるんですか。さ早く片付けて。
Since Goda-san was one to harp on the fact that presenting a clumsy appearance in front of guests is a servant's shame, he urged him along in a low voice. Canon-kun, who probably understood quite well without being told, wordlessly reloaded the wheelbarrow with the fallen objects. He seemed to be fine with the light-looking gardening tools, shovels and such, but he looked like he was having trouble getting his arms around and lifting up some sacks of fertilizer.
大丈夫かよ、そそっかしいな。ほら。
お嬢様、お召し物が汚れます。ここはお任せください。
Goda-san took the shovel that Jessica had picked up with an elegant gesture. At his back was the figure of Canon-kun, having trouble with the sacks of fertilizer.
お召し物が汚れる？
安心しろよ。俺が着てるのはそんなお上品なものじゃねえぜ。
Really? Do you normally walk around in clothes like that? 'Cause those are some, in my eyes, those are some fancy clothes you got on.
それによ。俺はレストランで落ちたフォークをウェイトレスに拾わせるってやつが大嫌いなんだ。
Now that right there, that is one of the rudest things you can do. Just because you're paying someone for service doesn't mean you have to be a jerk about it. Sorry, just my little personal rant, because that happens a lot. I lifted up other bags that had fallen. Of course, they weren't light, but for me, it was a piece of cake. Canon-kun turned his surprised eyes towards me. It was the face of one who would never have thought to receive help from a guest.
バトラ様、結構です。僕が全てやりますので。
気にすんな。こう見えても鍛え方が違うぜ。
Since Canon-kun looked like he hadn't yet gone through its growth spurt, he was stuck with a sort of weak body. I guess that this kind of weight was too much for him.
結構重いね。カノン君が苦労するのも無理はないよ。カノン君、気にしないで。
これぞ俺の見せ場さ。
Aren't they so nice?
さっきの船の分はチャラだよな。
この程度のことじゃさっきの大騒ぎが帳消しになるもんかよ。 ノン君にも後で教えてやるよ。バトラったら面白いんだぜ。
Oh, I'm sure Canon-kun is just the one who loves gossip.
落ちる
As they did this, I piled all the stuff back into the wheelbarrow.
お見苦しいところをお見せして申し訳ございませんでした。
さあさあもう結構ですよ。言ってください。
Letting such a disgraceful thing be seen by the guests who were supposed to be made welcome must have been hideously embarrassing as a servant. Pressed by Goda to hurry up and exit, Canon-kun left.
ゴーダさんもいじめすぎよ。意地悪言わないで、あなたも手伝えばよかったんじゃない？
これは至りませんで。
Wow.
誠に申し訳ございませんでした。
Okay. That's a little... I don't know if I'd say rude, but... negligent, maybe? Not even that, I don't know. Without even a twitch in his smile, Goda-san apologized elegantly.
カノン君もええところはぎょうさんあるんやで。
Such as...
若いんかの。いろいろと損をしとる。もったいないわ。
気難しい年頃さ。そっとしといてやれよ。使用人は寡黙なくらいがちょうどいいさ。な、熊沢さん。
ルドルフ様は手厳しゅうございますこと。私ほど使用人で寡黙な者はおりませんとも。へへ。
Everyone smiled wryly at that shameless lie. Even she herself didn't believe it, not in her wildest dreams. She said that to loosen all of us up. Yeah, that's the kind of character Kumasawa Bachan used to be. The mood that had stiffened a little was cleared up in a twinkling, thanks to Kumasawa-san's cheerful smile.
そろそろ荷物を置きたいわね。ゴダさん、部屋割りはどうなってるのかしら。
昨年と同じになっております。さあ、ご案内いたします。どうぞこちらへ。
We headed towards a trim, elegantly simple guest house. This was gonna be our temporary quarters for the night. Uh-oh. ... Cannon watched over a hedge as the guests all entered the guest house. Then, he let his eyes fall on those heavy sacks of fertilizer, piled up in the wheelbarrow. In his mind, he kept going over his previous mistake. Battler, big and strong, had picked up the sacks in front of him, the sacks he himself couldn't lift, as if they were feathers. It was extremely difficult for an outside observer to guess what emotions that favor had stirred up in Cannon. But as far as you could tell by watching him hang his head from behind, there was something that he couldn't just let go. Muttered words escaped his lips. But those words he murmured were so soft that they didn't even reach his own ears.
僕だって
You wish you could what? Cannon hung his head, slightly biting his lower lip. Oh no, we'll never know. Oh no!
バラの庭園は記憶にあったんだけどよ。
Alright, so we're gonna make the first cut here, so I'll be right back, and if you've seen this up to now, that means it worked well, and I'm not angry. So, let's hope for the best. Oh man, it's playing. Oh, this is... I mean, I know I've done this a couple times already, but even still, like, after all that trouble I had last time, watching it happen right in front of me. Ooh, that's exciting. Okay, let's get back in the game. Alright, back again. Oh, that's exciting. I'm glad that worked. I'm not sure what messed it up last time. I'm thinking I did adjust a few settings, but it shouldn't have really messed with anything, so I'm thinking maybe it was just a freak accident. I don't know. I mean, I've used this program enough, and I haven't had issues up until now, so I'm thinking it's probably just a freak accident. Anyway, let's continue.
このゲストハウスっつうのは記憶にねえな。これ、建てたのは最近か？
Toran, Visitor's Retreat, was written on a gatepost-like thing, but since everyone called it the guest house, I followed their lead. Or Toranian? Is that what it was? The brand new Western-style guest house that stood overlooking the rose garden had a magnificent design, carefully done in harmony with the garden.
正解だよ。立ったのはつい一昨年さ。それ以降は僕たちはこっちに泊めさせてもらってるんだよ。
年季の入ったボロ屋敷よりこっちの方が好評みてえだしな。私も自分の部屋をこっちに持ちたいぜ。
マリアも持ちたい。持ちたい。
I guess you could say that my home was also upper class, but I thought it was completely ordinary compared to the head house. The display of wealth was shocking, as was the fact that they could build this kind of awesome guest house for guests who come over, like once a year.
エヴァ様、秀吉様、こちらのお部屋をお使いくださいませ。ルドルフ様、キリエ様はこちらのお部屋をお使いくださいませ。
やっぱりここは綺麗で上品でいいわね。洋風って本当に素敵だわ。
ほんの2、3日なら洋風もええやろが、ずっといて落ち着くのは断固和風やで。日本人は畳の上が一番くつろげるんや。
新しい家を和風にするか洋風にするかで喧嘩してね。お父さんが和風で着工させたのを母さんまだ根に持ってよく言い合いをするんだよ。
ジョージ兄さんのところは両親仲が良くて羨ましいぜ。うちなんか冷め切ったもんさ。そのくせ私の成績の話だけは連帯しやがる。
All the rooms seemed to be two-person. I was grateful because, since things turned out like this, I wasn't going to be forced to share the same room with the old man, under the pretext that we were family. I figured those two wouldn't be able to enjoy themselves with someone like me around. Hehehe.
何気持ち悪い顔で笑ってんのよ。どうせ下世話なこと考えてるんでしょう。
下世話なんてとんでもない。どうぞごゆっくりお過ごしくださいませ。あ、はい、いえたよ、クソ親父。
It's like the only move he knows is the ear pulling. Once again, Dad pulled my ears from behind.
バカなこと言ってんじゃねえ。俺は胃がキリキリ痛み始めてて、とてもそんな元気はわかねえぜ。今回はお前が主賓だろうが、せいぜい親父や兄貴たちに可愛がられるよ。親父の前では言葉遣いにだけ気をつけろ。あの人、本当にシャレが通じねえからな。ジェシカちゃん、我らが当主様のご機嫌は最近どうなんだ？
去年から相変わらずかな。余命3ヶ月、余命3カリカリ、イライラしてるって話です。
今年も相変わらず不機嫌ってわけね。お守りができるのはやっぱり源氏さんだけなの？
私たち下々では近頃はお目通りすらなかなか叶わず。
また書斎に閉じこもって怪しげな黒魔術三昧じゃねえのかな。何をやろうとてめえの趣味だから構わねえけど、匂いが立ち込める系は勘弁してほしいもんだぜ。ついでにそのまま書斎から永久に出てくんなってんだ。
年長の人にそんな言い方をするもんじゃないよ。後宮家を復興させてくれた大恩人なんだから、もっと感謝しないと。
まあ、ごめん。
After being rebuked by George Anarchy, Jessica had no choice but to take back her thoughtless remark. The Ushiramiya family was wealthy beyond belief, but that of course meant that all its members were weird people who cut themselves off from the world entirely. The head of the family, standing at its peak, in other words, our grandfather, seemed to be a particularly weird and terrifying person, even for our family. Dad had said that he was getting a stomachache earlier, but I guess that's what all the adults who came here today were actually feeling. No doubt they were jealous of us, the grandchildren, just playing and laughing without a care. From the stories Dad told me, the head of the family was a violent man who rained blows at his sons with his own fists, and even beat his daughters mercilessly with a wooden sword. Interesting. It doesn't sound like he's the greatest granddad, grandfather, whatever you would go by. If he was such a jerk with his kids, why wasn't he the same with their names? Because of that, it's a pain even for his grandkids. Well, I'm not the least unsettled by his terrifying image. I don't have many memories of meeting him over the years, but I remember Grandpa, his face always full of menacing thunderclouds, always making his surroundings shrink away with a dark look. Sharp. I remember that the room's atmosphere got so tense whenever he was around. You couldn't even breathe. What my dad said right now about me being the guest of honor now carries a little more oomph for me.
6年前は俺も小学生だったが、さすがに今は高校生だ。失礼のある態度なんか取ったら大変なことになるかもしれねえな。怖い怖い。
確かにこわもてだけど、そんなに硬くなるほど怖い人じゃないよ。決して理不尽なことは言ってないもん。口下手なだけでちゃんと筋は通す人だよ。
ジョージ兄さんは昔から成績優秀で一族の鏡じゃねえかよ。私たちとじゃじい様の待遇が全然違うぜ。私なんか木刀で引っ叩かれたことあるしよ。尻だぜ尻。それも乙女の生尻をよ。
ジェシカちゃんは本家の跡取り娘だもん。おじい様も特に目をかけてくれてるんだよ。その厳しさは期待の気持ちの裏返しだと思わなくちゃ。
Or, possibly, alternately, maybe he's just a big jerk.
冗談じゃねえぜ。その跡取りってやつはジョージ兄さんに譲るよ。私が担ぐにはちょいとしんどいぜ。
I think I already said it before, but Jessica was the daughter who would inherit the head house. As cousins of a branch of the family, the pressure on her shoulders was probably different.
ジェシカお姉ちゃんが重い？マリアが持ったら軽くなる？
サンキューな。大丈夫。マリアちゃんには押し付けねえよ。この十字架は私が墓まで背負ってくよ。
That's sinister.
安心しなって。
She was grateful for Maria's innocent consideration, but it seemed that anxiety for the future she couldn't clear away remained on Jessica's face. Were we the same? If it was a high schooler near an examination, nobody would be able to hide their anxiety for the future.
マリアいらっしゃい。お母さんとマリアはこの部屋よ。
バトラ君は僕と一緒にこっちの部屋だってさ。
おお、なになに、こりゃ驚いた。親たちの部屋より広めじゃないのよ。わお
わお。
どうせいとこ同士で集まるだろうと思ってよ。大きめの部屋にするように言っておいたんだ。
おお、マリアもこっちがいい。ママと一緒よりこっちがいい。
そうか、マリアもこっちがいいか。よし、ここは俺とジョージ兄貴の部屋だが、特別に出入りを許可してやろ
う。Only you. You're not allowed to bring any friends.
お母さんには内緒だぞ。
内緒。
Her mother, Aunt Rosa, was right behind us, but Maria still answered, striking the air with her fist clenched tight. After our parents put the luggage in the rooms, they gathered again in the corridor.
おいガキども、お前らはどうする？ ここでいとこ同士おしゃべりでもしてるか？
It seemed that they were heading to the mansion to announce their arrival. Normally, we would have had to follow them and greet everyone together. But if that had been the case, Dad would have just said, "You guys come," and finished it. He was telling us that it was alright if we didn't come, so what do we do?
どうせもうすぐお昼や。子供はそこでくつろいでたらええ。それに表で遊べるのは下手をすると今のうちだけかもしれんしの。
マリアはここでお留守番してなさい。いたずらをしないでおとなしく待ってるのよ。
Telling Marie to house sit was a pretty lame excuse for leaving her behind. George Aniki soon realized it, and gave a clear reply for all of us.
じゃあ僕たちはお言葉に甘えて留守番してようか。1年ぶりに積もる話もあるしね。
それがいいわ。バトラ君なんか6年分積もってる
Oh, that's true, isn't it? Yeah.
へいへい。お子ちゃまな俺はおとなしくお留守番してるぜ。
熊沢さん、私もこっちに残るからよ。あとは大人に任せて若者は退散してるぜ。
それがおよろしいでしょう。奥様にはそのようにお伝えいたします。
それでは皆様、お屋敷の方へご案内させていただきます。どうぞこちらへ。
他の子はともかく、ジョージは成人してるんだから連れて行った方がいいんじゃない？
そんなんでジョージだけ仲間外れはかわいそうやで。いとこ同士の交流も大事や。ほな、行ってくるで。
The adults left one after the other. Like the time he had guided us from the harbor, Goda-san went ahead, with Kumasawa-san at the rear. As we gathered in the cousin's room assigned to us, George Aniki asked us to excuse him for a second. He rushed over to Kumasawa-san, who was following behind the disappearing adults, and seemed to be asking her something. He soon finished his business and came back.
どうしたんだよ、兄貴。
ああ、なんでもないよ。
What do you mean nothing?
ちょっと聞きたいことがあっただけさ。
マリアにも聞いた。マリアにも聞いた。
何かな。ジョージ兄さんが私に聞かなくて熊沢さんには聞くことって何かな。なあ、全然見当がつかねえぜ。
いや、誤解だよ。ジェシカちゃんが何を誤解してるのか知らないけど。
Aniki was getting pretty tongue-tied. It's almost as though he had a guilty conscience, and he was putty in Jessica's hands. Why? Something only Jessica knows and I don't is no fun at all.
なあ、マリア。俺たちだけのけ者なんてねえよな。何の話か聞きてえよな。
バトラとマリアも聞きたい。バトラとマリアも聞きたい。
I fooled around while oohing together with Maria.
いや、だから大したことじゃ。
さっつけ。兄貴にしちゃ嘘が下手だぜ。拍手しやがれ。マリア、お前は右脇をくすぐれ。俺は左脇だ。
マリアは右脇だ。バトラは左脇だ。
ちょっと二人ともやめて。やめ。
Maria and I played around, chasing George Aniki, who ran away, rolling on the bed. I think that when you're a high schooler, you try not to act like a kitten anymore. But in spite of that, I miss this kind of fun. A warm kind of fun.
ジョージ兄さんが熊沢さんに聞いたのはね、 まあほらあれだぜ、兄さんも本家は1年ぶりだからよ。その間に辞めた使用人とか入った使用人とか、そういうのがいたら挨拶したいって、そういうことらしいぜ。
おお、挨拶する。マリアも挨拶する。
なんだよそれ、全然やましくねえじゃねえかよ。
We don't even know what it was.
違うな。マリア、騙されるな。兄貴は何か隠してるぞ。尋問再開だ。うおりゃ。
やめてよ本当に。マリアちゃんももうやめて。
Did we stop tickling him and now we're like hitting him with boxes or something?
多分
That's what it sounds
昼
like.
飯の準備とかで忙しいんだよ。大丈夫、後でちゃんと挨拶に来るぜ。ゴーダの出しゃばりの出迎えよりシャノンの出迎えの方が良かったってんだろ。
シャノン？シャノン。ああ、思い出したぜ。そんな子もいたな。今も使用人やってんのか？元気かよ。
Shannon, And we still didn't get that information out of George, did we? Suspicious. And I believe this is the head house. I'm gonna take my second break. If this ends up going well, then I will just keep going for the rest of the set without taking a break. I just want to make sure that the second time goes well, so we'll be right back.